Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've got a joke for you.
Ooh.
Okay, so
Okay, great.
so Daryl Becker, he's going into a bar, yeah, and there's this big pile of dog crap right in the middle of the door, and he slips, boom, and he's like he scoots over, his back is smashed, and he's all in pain, and he's leaning against the wall just next to the door, and then so Owen Hunt comes walking along after him a few minutes later and does the same thing, slips in the pile of dog crap. Oh, oh, oh. And Daryl, points and says, I did that. And so Owen gets up and starts beating him. He's like, you dirty rat. Anyway, that's the joke, He thought he did that as in he did the poo,
Right.
not the
Okay.
fall.
Right.
Yeah. Start off with
I
a
love
good
it.
joke.
Yeah, it's good.
Do you
Yeah.
know any good bar jokes? So and so walks into a bar.
Yeah. Two guys walked into a bar and the third one ducked.
Let me think about that. Two guys walk into a bar and the third one ducked. I'm stupid. Trigger complexity. I don't get it.
He didn't
Okay.
walk into the bar. It was like a bar, not a bar, but a bar.
Okay.
A horse walks into a bar and the bartender says,
Why the long face?
That's a good one. I love that one. That's classic.
That one. Ham sandwich walks into a bar.
I don't know.
Bartender says, we don't serve food here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
okay. A skeleton walks into a bar and says, give me a beer and give me a mop. Yeah. Because, he's a skeleton, goes right through him.
Right. It's just going to go right through him.
Okay.
Yeah,
an Irishman walks out of a bar. That's the joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
got
that.
Two more.
Brevity.
Got two more. Got two more. Three-legged dog walks. There's a three-legged dog walks into a bar and says, I'm looking for a son of a bitch that shot my paw.
A bear walks into a bar and he says, can I have a beer? And the bartender says, why the long pause?
Ah, yes. Oh yeah, that was, yeah. I used to know that one. I used to tell jokes all the time because I used to teach English in Spain, and the students would sit around and we would sit in a big circle, and inevitably, as the wine kept flowing, I always seemed to be, the night ended with me like telling my entourage of jokes. Now, my boss was this Irish guy, and he was one of the funniest dry sense of humor guys that I knew. And he was quick-witted rather than the guy that would sit around and tell a joke. You could throw something at him and he would be so quick to come back at it. He was that, and that's hard to do. That's hard to do. I got two more jokes though. Speaking of Spain, what do you call a Spaniard who stays in good shape? He's healthy, he's a all around healthy guy. What's his name?
I don't know.
Manuel.
Yeah.
Manuel.
That's good.
One more. What do you call a Spaniard whose car has been stolen? What's his name?
I don't know.
Carlos. Have you studied any other languages?
Yeah, I can speak Spanish a little bit. I used to live in South America.
Yeah, that's cool. Were you in Puerto Rico, Costa Rica?
I was in Costa Rica actually for a while as an Outward Bound instructor, and then I went to Peru for about 8 months.
Awesome. That's a whole other conversation unto itself.
God, it really is, man.
But humor is one of the most difficult things to do in another language. It's also one of the most fun, especially when you can start to twist the language, I don't know, play with the words.
It translates though.
Some jokes,
but I mean, you don't have to say words to make a funny, you can be physically funny, and that translates, like one of the things that I got all the time in Peru was, why are you bald? What happened to your hair? you know, because like Latin men, they don't lose their hair. And I was like, I don't freaking know. Like, how am I supposed to answer that question? You know, it's like, I'm Calvo. And like, one of the first things that I like, when I first started picking up on the language, I was walking down the street and this dude screams out. He's like, mira, su cabeza es a huevón. And he was talking about me. You know what I mean? He's like making fun of my bald ass. And I was like, oh, I understood that. And then I was immediately disappointed because he was making fun of me. You know, it was like a really juxtaposed moment. I was excited and also very saddened at the same time.
I'm moving house today. It's been 2 years, 8 months and 28 days. And I've got to say that as I step off the bus for what could be the last time spent as sitting in your boss supermarket queues, etc. And I have to say though, it's only today that I'm glad to be leaving. I really will miss the when Santa
Listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan.
I haven't introduced you yet. This is a good start, telling some jokes. So I will start by introducing Bootsy Greenwood, aka Owen Hunt. Owen Hunt is, okay, I've got a huge list here. Help me out here. Now, I made my own list and then I saw your own intro from your own bio. So I'm just going to meld them together. Comedian, coach, podcaster, deep thinker, and explorer of the truth, producer, author, narrator, and student of mysteries of the universe. Did that? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds important, maybe. I don't know. It sounds cooler than I am. That's what bios are supposed to be, right?
Your book, What's Beyond Reality, Discovering the Hidden World Around Us. Okay. What's that about? Well, how did you, what motivated you to write it?
Well, it's still being produced. But what motivated me to write it was really that I think that there are energies that entrap us that are unseen. And that's really kind of the beginning of what is beyond reality, you know, like, or the seen or the unseen, really understanding the metaphysical world, or at least catching a glimpse of it. We know there's lots of stuff that we can't necessarily see, microwaves, radio waves, you know, things outside the color spectrum. And so those things have always fascinated me. And then particularly, you know, coming into sort of the truth and discovering the truth, I got really depressed when I started discovering some of these things, and I needed a way to sort of, you know, hype my state. I actually was pretty crushed quite a few years ago, but, you know, it took me some time to kind of get my head back in the game and really become myself again. You know, that dark night of the soul is, it's not a fun experience to go through. I think it's necessary for a lot of us, but I personally am looking for ways to try and help people, maybe at least, I would say, you know, maybe just, I don't know, lessen the effects of it by offering purpose. So like really what Beyond Reality is, and the idea of what I do, is to help people find purpose, because I think that's more important than understanding how all these negative things, like this has gone wrong, this is bad over here, terrible things are happening. It actually just makes those things worse. You know, the esoteric saying is, where attention goes, energy flows. And so Beyond Reality is really a discovery into what we really are. Consciousness is just a $3 word for attention. That's it. And that's all we really, like, we're just energy, and our only real tool is attention. So whatever we put our attention to, that's what we're actively contributing to the world. And ideas themselves have their own momentum and energy. One of the things that Rich talks about is that French book, what is it? The Crowd. You know, that book where he talks about how powerful, you know, the crowd is and how dumbed down the crowd is. And it talks about some of the things that will happen in a crowd, but it doesn't really give you a reason why. And what's really going on is there's metaphysical energy in the other side of reality, right? Which is equivalent to the dream world, for the record. When I figured that out, it blew my mind. And so, the Kabbalion says the universe is mental. So there's like a mental world, which is encapsulating as much of, and probably still expanding, it's infinite. And that's what I would call beyond reality. And then there's the finite world, which is basically a solid dream within the dream of everything that is.
The reality
And so-
that we can observe while we're awake.
Exactly. The 5 sense observable, more objective reality. Exactly.
How can you explore the other side? There must be a lot of ways. I'm thinking psychedelics. I'm thinking
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can think of that I can come up with. That's
Well,
it.
I'll be honest with you. That is certainly one way to do it. And a lot of the people that I've followed over the years, Robert Anton Wilson's one of my personal heroes. He wrote a book called Prometheus Rising. And he and Timothy Leary were trying to help people with psychedelics. Now, as we have progressed and evolved, we're learning more and more and more how to fix people's traumas and help them heal without the use of psychedelics. But Robert Anton Wilson's model is the 8 circuit model of consciousness. And so if you were to lay that beside like something that we maybe learn in college or are more familiar with, the first 4 circuits of those are developmental psychology, right? And this is how we imprint and how we become who we are in the world. We start to make assumptions and some conscious beliefs about the world from a very young age, and then we just begin to build on those. Most people never really understand how those beliefs were created or why. They just go on with those beliefs in place and then continue on. So those first 4 circuits are developmental psychology. And beyond those, there's 4 more, 8 total. It gets into those more beyond the physical sort of states of consciousness. And those are even related in his work to different substances, chemicals in the brain, etc. So,
And is all this in his book Prometheus?
Prometheus Rising. Yeah, he
Prometheus
talks a lot
Rising.
about it. Talks a lot about our development in that book. It's an excellent book. I love Robert Anton Wilson for a lot of reasons. And he's one of many, many philosophers. He calls himself a guerrilla ontologist that I've personally studied and
Who was he? Where was he from? When did he live? I don't know much about him, or in fact, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah. So he lived in California and he was really into semantics. He was really into what he called maybe logic, which is like, I don't know who said it. It's like the mark of an educated mind can entertain 2 thoughts at the same time. He's like, fuck that. We need to entertain like hundreds of thoughts at the same time. It's not enough. He's like, really understanding. He was really big into language as well, and Korzybski's work in semantics, and talking about how if we could eliminate the word is out of our vocabulary, the consciousness level of humanity would rise thousands of points overnight. Because like I sit here and I say, well, Mozart is better than Beethoven. And you're like, no, Beethoven's better than Mozart. And so that's so determined. But if I say to me, I like Beethoven better than Mozart, well, now all of a sudden we're not really at odds anymore. Those sort of conflicts can be, resolved in a way that's my opinion, that's your opinion.
That is interesting. What comes to mind when you say that is what we talk often about in autonomy is try to avoid statements, rather turn them into a question. It ties along that same concept. Yeah.
There's a lot to language, and I'm learning more and more about it. It's not something that I'm personally all that well versed in, but I am starting to uncover some pretty interesting things, and some friends of mine as well. And that's what's been really the coolest thing about, starting a community, I would say, and a program. Because like Beyond Reality, the book, not done yet. I took my efforts and really focused it on creating a program because for a lot of reasons, right? Like it's more accessible, it's more profitable, frankly.
Are you referring to your course that you've created in January that started last January?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So that course is basically not just my offerings and what I've discovered that will be in that book, but also a collaboration with many other teachers, coaches, people that I look up to, super fortunate to have so many people who would be willing to come and speak. And it's going to be a course that continues to grow and evolve and develop over time. I'm going to create this sort of benchmark, eight modules. Eight's a very interesting number and a very common number for me, but then we're going to continue to add to that. You know, I'm really covering purpose and how to implement your purpose, right? Like, and giving the tools to people for that. That's really the main focus of the program. And then from there, you know, we're just going to continue to explore tools that can help us in the world as we continue to evolve and progress and implement that purpose. I really find that, like, that was the thing I was missing the most. And, you know, whenever we go on and do something as entrepreneurs, it's very often related to our own pain. So that's kind of what
But that makes sense. You know, I wouldn't
Mhm.
want to, you know, I wouldn't want to learn from somebody who hasn't done it, who hasn't been through it. And to go through
Right.
anything, you have to suffer, you have to do the work. Two things,
exactly
two
right.
thoughts that have come to mind on language. Yeah. And to add to what you were saying about language and the power of language, that would also explain why there is obviously a war against language. You know, they're coming at us from all fronts, you know, the food, the air, the water, the family. There's a war also against language now. And I can't help but wonder, you know, all of the esoteric stuff going on with these parasites that is really behind all of that. I think it all ties in, particularly with the whole male female attack. Um, I think it seems it probably ties in with the war against the family. The, you know, just another step to try to, you know, divide and conquer.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to ask you as well, what about numerology as well? Have you studied that
I
much?
mean,
How does that tie into all this?
I haven't that much, to be honest with you. That's not something that's a specialty of mine. I do know somebody who is a master numerologist, and my friend Allison, who does like a lot of the design work. It's kind of cool. The designs that we have for the course and stuff is she's like very interested in the numbers of it, and that's an added element to it. Numbers are very important. I don't know a whole lot about numerology. I do see a lot of the same numbers often. For me, I kind of just take that as a sign. It's like people like they see 1111 on the clock or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, it's an activation code." And I'm like, "No, it's not." It's, you know why you see 1111 on the clock? Because you're looking at your phone all day. That's why you see 1111 on the clock. But I see 1234. I see 444 a lot. And to me, I just use that as a personal reminder to, hey, you know, where am I at? Like, check in with myself and like maybe just, you know, check where my attention is and where my thoughts are, you know, because a lot of the work that we do, it's really internal work. And that's I think a big distraction that happens in you know, when you first get into some of this information, is you start to give a lot of power and energy to these structures, these control systems, and you want to fight against it. But that's a losing battle. The world and the esoteric, as above so below, the world is a mirror and it reflects our attitude towards it. So if we turn away from it, it turns against us. If we fight against it, it fights against us. And there's like an Eastern saying that what you resist persists. If you've ever heard that saying, it's a very, very true thing. So understanding that these like energies and these ideas are really gaining momentum. Vadim Zeland calls them pendulums. They're also called egregores. They're called
I pronounce it egregor. That is one egregore or egregor. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless, and they're energetic informational structures, right? Like they're collections of thoughts and energy radiated at a certain frequency that collect and they manipulate. So in that crowd, in Gustave Le Bon's book, The Crowd, why people are so stupid in a group is because of those energetic informational structures. It's because of that momentum, right? Because people aren't that stupid as in singularity. And so you could see somebody who commits a crime, right? They just get completely enraged and black out, commit a crime, and then wake up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I even did that. What happened? What took over that person, right? Well, it's an egregor or a pendulum or an energetic informational structure. That's what it is. They have scripts And that's that's what the matrix is made of. The matrix is made of pendulums. It's made of egregors. It's made of energetic informational structures. These people who are in control, they don't have that much control, but what they can do is create energies and momentum that continues to snowball over time, over time, over time. And then ultimately, we basically subconsciously, serve those things. And that's free your mind, Neo, get away from these concepts, these ideas that have been put into play by the elite, right? Like that's the trick right there. And so stepping away, not fighting against it, and completely ignoring it, because that makes it worse, but stepping away from it and creating something new. Like Buckminster Fuller says, you can never change a system from within. You have to create a new system. So that's the key right there.
That's a great quote as well by Buckminster Fuller. I think we should spend the rest of this conversation debating whether we pronounce it egregore or egregor, agorism or agorism. No.
No, let's do that. That's a great idea. We can prove Robert Anton Wilson's point for him for the rest of the interview.
I learned about that through Eric Furlan. He gave a presentation in Toastmasters, and he gave examples of what an egregor is, like a football stadium and how it just spreads out. It's something I remember talking about that topic before, but to be able to put a name on it. And so, everything that you're talking about, that you're mentioning, as you're able to identify it and put a name on it, it's kind of like, could be compared to, okay, you've been brainwashed in public schooling, but you don't know it. But then once you figure it out, you start to identify the scarcity mindset and the learned helplessness as it's happening. And that is a step. So pushing through with everything that you've learned from guys like, Robert Anton Wilson, how does this all apply to your everyday life? I mean, it just seems like what you're doing, what's lacking. I go into town and the mask mandate's just been lifted in Texas, but there's still people wearing masks. Why? Mm-hmm. Because they don't know is it because they don't know who they are? They don't know where they stand. They need to get their line in the sand straight. How far are they willing to go? And a lot of people who haven't figured that out yet, there's still that fear factor. So what do you think? Am I rambling on, or am I getting at a point where the awareness and the pursuit of what you're doing would help anyone so much?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And so there's another book as well, and I did a series on it called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And that book is pretty fascinating as well. He talks about this sort of, phenomenon of egregors or egregores or pendulums. I like the word pendulum because it swings back and forth, and that's very divisive. You can see the polarization with that, but he calls it the law of hypnotic rhythm. So the law of hypnotic rhythm, and through the law of hypnotic rhythm, people basically drift through life. They're not thinking for themselves. They haven't actively challenged their own thoughts and their own beliefs. And I can relate to this. Until I came across Rich's work and What You've Been Missing, I would get glimpses here and there, but I was mostly not even thinking for myself. I was being thought. So what is the difference between thinking and being thought? You're actively taking control of your mind. And so in all the esoteric literature, the universe is mental. It's all about thoughts. Thoughts are the basis of everything. And emotions too. Like once we drill down, right? Those two things are very connected. They create a loop. So as far as people go, what they really need and what that book talks about is definiteness of purpose. Anyone with definiteness of purpose can endure and all the struggles and the challenges and overcome those because they have that connection. And I call that like a connection to source, to connection to infinity or the dream world or God, whatever we want to call it. That is really where we derive our true identity from, right? As we get lost mentally in these laws of hypnotic rhythm, these ideas that are external, that are not really who we are, we begin to identify with them. Like I'll take an example, and I don't mean any offense by this, but a Mormon goes around, rides a bike, puts on a white shirt, a tie, knocks on your door, gives you a pamphlet. That wasn't his idea. That was created externally by someone else, and he's conforming to that standard. And that's what we're seeing in society. People are conforming to these standards, these energetic informational structures. It doesn't matter if it's fear-based or anger-based or any of those things. They are just basically just tapped into it mentally, and then they're just playing it out. So they've lost connection to source, true source, and now they're just like basically, just being played by these, pimped out, frankly, by these energetic informational structures. And so that's how we lose our identity. We come up through childhood and we're like, oh, well, all my friends want to be a baseball player. So I'm going to be a baseball player too. And we conform. The rule of the pendulum is do as I do. The law of hypnotic rhythm is going to continue that progress over and over and over again. The law of hypnotic rhythm is why the earth revolves around the sun, or the sun revolves around the earth, or however the fuck that happens. But whatever is established in nature, that's continuing to go and go and go and go. And so the more we give that energy, the more we feed that little monster, whatever that is, it could be positive or negative. We're continuing that progression, that cycle, that habit. And that becomes and gives more and more power on a collective level, as well as an individual level. So we can see as above, so below is another one of those big esoteric sayings. So as in within the individual, so it is with the whole, as it is in the heavens, so it is on earth, right? As it is in the dream world, so it is in for the mental world, right? So it is in the physical world. So we're seeing that correlation there, and people are basically being hijacked, frankly, by these like invisible informational structures our entire life. We're told to do this. We're told to conform to this standard. And it's not standard itself. It's that energy that we basically become attached to, lose our identity, and then we become this like mannequin, this like person that, vies for the status quo. We have no individuality anymore. We've lost our sense of purpose, and that sense of purpose is connected to our identity. So that's what I teach.
That is exactly what I meant to say earlier. Yeah, everything you just said, that was exactly what I was going to say, word for word. You explained it.
I'm glad that you.
Yeah. You explained it just like I was going to. No, in seriousness, that was well put. And I always assumed it was fear-based. Everything I see is fear-based, but something you mentioned as well, it's earlier, it's not always fear-based. It's other things like anger and what could be some other factors of why people are just conforming. They're, whatever emotional trauma,
it's basically
I suppose.
A provocation. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a provocation, right? It's provoking a response. It's stimulus response. So it's all about cultivating that ability to stop for a second, right? Be present. That's why in the the New Age movement and the Eastern philosophy, they cultivate presence. Presence is not the end all be all, like a lot of these people. Just be present. Just be present as you get a spike through your arm. But like, no, it's not. That's the beginning. That's the beginning. Because in order to create the future, you have to be able to be at peace with the present. You have to be able to accept what is if you want to create something better or an alternative or be effective as a person, right? Like you can't just be in denial about it and be able to change anything that way. So that's really the basic, at least in my opinion, that's really the beginning of that whole thing. Like you have to be present and aware. And so cultivating that gap between stimulus and response where we can, consciously take an action and act instead of reacting to provocation. It's always a provocation. It could be somebody smacking their food across the table from you. It just makes you want to take your fork and stab them in the hand, but like understanding that and really being the witness, the observer of ourselves and how we're basically being played by these energies all the time. And we're unconsciously, and other people are unconsciously picking up on this like phenomenon. Like, the football game example is perfect, right? Like that's a great example. Imagine a team runs out, everybody cheers. That team is getting all this energy. They're jumping up on the side. Then the other team comes out, boo, but they're getting all this energy. They're taking that and they're using that for their own benefit, right? Well, if that team ran out and everybody just shut up and it was dead quiet in the stadium, how much energy would there be at that point. Right. And so understanding these things from an energetic level, because the pendulum or the egregore or the tulpa or the toku or whatever the hell we're going to call it, that's the thing that's actually receiving the energy. Right. Because otherwise, like the guy who missed the field goal would just probably die from all the negative energy being radiated at him, but it's actually being received in that energetic in the dream world. And so that's like building these momentums, where we can't see it. So, and those are the things that we're locking into on a macro and a micro level too. So like if I'm walking down the street and I want to pass somebody, how funny is it that I like try to pass them and then they just so happen to take that step to the right as I'm trying to pass them? We observe these phenomenon all the time, but until we start
did you bump into him, or did he happen to step out of the way right in that moment?
He steps in your way. It's like when you get into traffic, and you're late and it just gets worse, and so there are phenomena there that are happening and have to do with us interacting with the world. The world is alive. It's not some, set thing that just, okay, now here it is and it's done. Like spring is happening, winter's happening, the wind is blowing, the world is living. Reality is not like some, thing that just is built and then now it's done. It's constantly alive. And so we're interacting in that environment and we're emotionally we're emotionally communicating with it. That's how the universe communicates with us as human beings, is through emotions. And so when we're connected to these energetic informational entities or structures or whatever they are, we're just being pulled around by them. They provoke us and then we react and they get that energy. They provoke us, we react and they get that energy. If they provoke us and we're different to it, then they don't get that energy. We keep our energy.
Sorry, you cut off for a split second. If they provoke us and we to it, what?
If we provoke us and we react to it, they get our energy. They win.
Okay.
Non-compliance.
That's where the power of non-compliance. Just say no and ignore ignorance, as Passio would say. Speaking of Passio,
it's indifference.
His criticism of the New Age movement was they have it right up to a point, but then it comes down to the lack of self-defense, and that exactly ties into what you said, being in the present until there's a needle being stuck in your arm. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Well, no, you're exactly right. Yeah, and I agree with them. I have a lot of bones to pick with the New Age movement. You can watch Yuri Bizmanov's interview with G. Edward Griffin, and he's talking about how much they love Eastern philosophy. Like they're just going to come over here while we're staring at our navels and just do whatever the hell they want, right? Yeah. So it's really about balance.
Great interview. I know it well. The steps. The how many steps was it? 10 steps to genocide or 9? I can't remember. Yeah.
Not sure. It's a great interview though. It's so good. Oh my gosh. It's horrifying too, because it's about taking the right steps. And again, working outside of the system, because like, that's the tendency, right? In the movement, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight against it. Well, you are doing nothing but enhancing what it is that you're fighting against. You're giving it more power. You're giving it more energy. You're giving it more attention. And by giving it attention, you are actively working against yourself. You couldn't be in a worse position. It's the worst strategy ever. The idea is, and I get it, right? Like I get the intention, but again, this is why the path to hell is paved with good intentions. But
dude, the only almost wore my T-shirt like said that, man. Sorry, I have a T-shirt that says that. Oh, T-shirt that I made, and I almost put it on. And see, that would have been a great moment. I could have stood up and said, "Yeah." See, I missed that. That's a synchronicity that almost happened. What about those? That could be another whole topic. Synchronicities that didn't quite happen.
Well, it still exists in infinity. So
there you go.
There's a version of that somewhere in the archives.
I've been lost my whole life. I was processed like any other kid, it was just, normal. And I say that in a bad way. Everything was normal. I went to high school. It was a great upbringing. Don't get me wrong. But high school, college, I was, the level of ignorance it was a very slow process for me. But my point is, I'm not there yet. I still have a lot of work to do on myself. And so I'm feeling this excitement in me motivated because the topic that this whole topic has always been something on the back of my in the back, sometimes in the front of my mind. I've often said to people, look, we know there's an invisible world. I mean, look at dogs and cats. Animal and the cow trails. And animals can see something, and that is evident that we cannot. So what else is out there that we cannot see? Which kind of leads to my next point. What about those kind of studies, as far as actually like clinically trying to see the energy that isn't there? I mean, I know like there's ultraviolet, there's things like that, but I don't know, what is the like what do you think it is that people see when they think they see a ghost, for example? I mean, is that in their mind? Is that something that hasn't been explained? There's just so much to it. What do you think?
There's so much to it. So here's what I think. Infinity is real. So we know that, right? So if I acknowledge something or quote unquote create it with my mind, well, did I really create it, or did I just choose it out of the ether of infinite options that exist? And I would say that I chose it out of the infinite ether of options that exist. Everything already exists. Everything that I can or can't conceive of, everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be already exists. So basically, the way these things work, and people do like all kinds of stuff. They do, magical rituals and all that kind of stuff. But the true power is choice. We don't even realize how much power free will affords us, right? Because we can literally choose out of the infinite options what we want to see in the world. And so that's what people are talking about when they're talking about manifesting, which is like one of my most hated words. I feel like that's like, just like an Eagles song, that I've heard way too many times. By this point, everybody talks about the law of attraction and manifestation and those types of things. So
elaborate. Sorry,
already
elaborate the problem with manifesting.
Well, it's just overused. I think it's technically accurate, but like the way that people use it is like, oh, well, you just believe this thing, then it will happen to you. And that's such a simplistic view of it. That's not true at all. What you need to learn to do is to choose from the infinite of options that exist. And the first step to that is presence and being at peace with what is. And then at that point, we can use intention to really focus on the thing that we want. And there are these sort of emotional, I would say, weather systems that we're going to have to deal with at that point. Because like I said, the universe, it communicates on an emotional level. So the more that we want something, balance is something that is very evident in nature. We see that water is always trying to make itself flat. And that actually goes over a rock and it fills itself in. So when we want something a whole bunch, well, we're creating a lot of importance to it, a lot of attachment to it, a lot of expectation to it, and that creates distortion between reality and the perception of the individual. So that has to be made up somehow. So as much as you desire something, you also doubt that you can have it the very same amount. That's how the balance of it works. So intention is different than desire. Intention is like the right to have and choosing that thing. We can think of it one way, and I don't necessarily say that this is how it happens or what it is, but just a way to think about it is that we throw a rock into the lake and that ripple goes in every direction. So if I throw a rock into the lake, I'm going to have, I don't know, this specific thing, whatever that is, it doesn't matter, fill in the blank. A thing, not a person, but like a TPS Louisville Slugger baseball bat. Boom, I'm going to have that. I throw that out there into the future with intention, and that ripple comes back, and reality sort of comes into line with that and creates the set of steps that take me to that thing that I intended for. Does that make sense? Like, intention is a weird sort of thing to try to explain. The best way I know how to explain it
kind of makes sense, but it's not something that's ever been at the forefront of my way of thinking, the power of intention. Well, kind of. I mean, I do believe in positive thinking. You can't let the negative energy get to you, but it's always been kind of the way I go about things, but not so consciously, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And it's a weird, intention is really hard to sort of describe, but I would say it like this. Imagine that you are at a party or like a crowded concert and you've had a little too much to drink and you have to go to the bathroom right now. And you are on your way to the bathroom, and for whatever reason, people have picked up on the fact that you need to get to the bathroom, and they are moving out of your way very rapidly.
Number one
You
or
are
number
moving to the
two?
bathroom with, I think you got to throw up, right? Like you got to throw up. Nobody wants to get thrown up on, and they can sense that there's a strong intention that you need to get to the bathroom right now. You're having a sort of an emergency. And so your intention is to get to that bathroom no matter what. And people start moving directly out of your way as a result of having that very strong intention. Moving in a crowd, for instance, you see somebody walking through a crowd with a very determined, they're not getting out of your way. You move, you yield to them because they're very determined. And that's what I say, like, is a determination to have. Is the best way I know how to describe that particular.
That's an excellent
idea or
example.
system.
It's true. Yeah. If you're just trying to get to the bar, you really dying for a beer, nobody's going to move out of the way for you. But, I think your example would be more entertaining though, if this person in question had like number two coming out. I don't know, but that's just my toilet humor,
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I was telling you, I'm on a cleanse right now. So that definitely resonates. You know what I mean? Like I feel that. I was driving home from the grocery store earlier, and I'm like, all right, just stay calm, just relax. Don't try to get like too irritated, because that traffic phenomenon and people like being backed up in traffic or not like seeing the light change. I'm just like, just relax, get home. You got this interview.
Oh man, I do. I keep a bottle in my car for those days. You're stuck in traffic and you got to pee. And there's sometimes you got to take care of business. It's going to come out one way or the other.
Oh man.
Yeah. Good times. The, oh man, see, I've been sitting here, like, use up like 2 cards taking notes while you've been talking. There's about 10 questions going back that I could have, from things you said that, I want to elaborate on this point, that point, based on everything that you've learned, that that you've studied so far. What are some examples of your daily life things that you do or don't do now, as opposed to before you started learning all of this stuff? Just a few small examples, because we're talking very generic here. Let's let the rubber hit the road for a bit.
Certainly. No, that's great. I love that. When I first kind of got into understanding reality and truth, I was in a very fear-based period in my life. I was very upset and depressed, and things were not going well. And I can, in any of these situations that we find ourselves in, one of the things that's brilliant in outwitting the devil is the devil says that in any negative situation, there is the seed for a positive advantage. In any positive situation, there's also the seed for negative advantage, and it's up to us to choose. So on a quantum level, what does that mean? So we test for waves at the basis of reality. We expect waves, bam, we get waves. We expect particles, we get particles. So negative and positive, there's always a choice in any moment, wherever we're at, where we can choose to try and find the advantage in that situation. Doesn't mean the advantage itself is an advantage, or the situation itself, excuse me. Doesn't mean the situation itself is positive.
Sorry,
That's
Owen,
really
to interrupt. Just a
simple.
tech question. Can you hear a rooster at all?
I can't.
Okay. No, sorry. I don't want the microphone picking up. I've got him yelling. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's totally fine. And I feel like he's just like, I'm preaching to the choir, and he's like, hell yeah, man. Fucking bars, that's what he's saying. Or at least that's how I feel. No, but we really do have a choice in every situation. It's not oversimplified like the New Age movement does. It's like, oh, well, this thing happened to you, so that's good. It's like, dude, no, that's not how it works. It's like, this thing happened to you. Now you have the opportunity to choose. Free will. You have free will. How are you going to react to this situation? Are you going to respond immediately to the stimulus and get upset and choose negative? Or are you going to say, you know what? I know that there's something here that I could learn, that I could benefit from. It might be challenging right now, but I can find a way out of this. There's got to be a silver lining. I can highlight this positively and find a way. So for me, a lot of the challenges that I was presented that made me want to give up were ways that I was being shown by, life, reality, whatever, on ways that I could help people in the future. You know, like I endured this challenge, and now guess what? I can help you if you're going through the same thing. So I was very depressed. And then I got into this stuff because I had to come out of this sort of funk. But learning the power of choice, learning how to basically change my relationship to the situation. It's not that the situation doesn't change necessarily, but if I can change my relationship to it, then at that point I can kind of hack it, right? And I can make it work for me as opposed to being dominated by it. So on a daily life thing for me, the most important thing that I do every morning is feel love in my heart. And that might sound like the cheesiest, hokiest thing you've ever heard in your life, but I don't care. It works. You know, I think of a memory. It could be any memory. It doesn't matter. I could think of a person, living or dead, a pet, doesn't matter. But I begin my day by focusing on that and using that memory to generate love in my heart. And then I focus on that feeling. And so, as I was saying, like all we really are is attention. So our attention's like an amplifier. The more I focus on that, the more it sort of perpetuates and the more it sort of grows. And so if I can begin my that, then have overall a better day than if I, let's say, and I was doing this a few months ago, actually, during when the pandemic first started, like open up Twitter and watch some kid get shot, you know, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, or something like that. Like that's not going to help the beginning of my day so much, right? So just beginning it in an emotional state that is positive and being at the cause of my day. How can we be at the cause instead of at the effect? As soon as we decide that we're at the effect, that we're being shoved or told, now we've given up all our control. We have no sovereignty at this point. Sovereignty is on an individual level, and it comes down to our choice. We always have that choice in the moment, no matter what happens to us. And search for meaning. That guy was in a freaking internment camp. Okay. And he got out of there and created an entire philosophy called logotherapy, where he talks about
who was this? You cut off for a split second. Who was in the internment camp?
Viktor Frankl.
Oh, he was, right when you said his name, it kind of went like mechanical. Yeah. His quote, you know, well, it's not proven that it's his quote, but, you know, between freedom, between thought and reaction, there is a space. And in that space lies freedom. Now, whether he actually said that or not, there's a debate, but it's an amazing quote either way you look at it. Sorry, continue.
No, it's absolutely the truth. So understanding and cultivating that's really what I've been talking about with this interview, right? We have these provocations that are happening to us all the time. Now, how do we react to those provocations, right? Like if it's not a big deal, then it falls flat. If I laugh at it, that takes away that energy. And that's why I'm such a big fan of comedy and humor, right? Like, because that energy is completely squashed. If you can make fun of something, it can't dominate you anymore.
Case in point.
That's just how that is.
When a child is learning to walk, you know, and then they fall or tumble down the stairs, kaboom, boom. And all the adults, you know, this is a key moment. What should all the adults, the parents do when the child, you know, doink, doink down the stairs? Everybody goes, yay! As opposed to, oh my God, you know, and I've got 2 kids. We're pretty good about doing that. You know, the child the child sometimes they don't know how to react and they look at you like they know something's bad just happened. So if everybody's like, yay, like every time my kid falls and scratches themselves, cuts themselves, you know, it's a celebration. Yes. You know, you're learning your physical limits, your limitations. Case in point. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. How we react.
No, that's perfect.
And the power we give to it is.
That's exactly right. That's our choice. That's our choice. So when you have, you know, something like that happen, and there's obviously more than one way to react, but those things are imprinting too. Like we have a lot of traumas that we carry with us, and that, you know, to get deeper into, you know, some of the work I do, but like really letting go of emotional hurts and traumas, that's a huge part of the work, you know, of the shadow, you know, and basically opening up and accepting the world as it is, because we have to get to that point if we really want to see any market improvement. Because if we're just constantly like, oh, well, I'm a victim, and you're in victim mentality because what they did and what the powers that should be are going to do and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're a victim at that point. You're not at the cause, you're at the effect. So we need to actively choose to be at the cause. And so in that space, that gap between stimulus and response, that really is where freedom lies. That's how he proves free will. Viktor Frankl. And so, that's really where our power is. So, being present is really about cultivating that space. That's what presence is all about. It's not about like just sitting there and staring at your navel, sitting on a pillow and, feeling blissful or whatever. That's bullshit. But understanding that in that space that we have all the power to choose. And I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that go along studying the human system, for instance, and like how we're engaging in which nervous system we're kind of going into at certain points in time. Cultivating that awareness can help us stay in the ventral vagal system as opposed to the parasympathetic or the
what system?
The nervous system.
Yeah.
We have three nervous systems that align to our brain parts.
Teach
right?
me.
Like in Passio's work, he talked about the lizard brain, right? The brain stem.
Can
He
I
talks
take
about the
that
mammal
one?
brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that one. The reptilian brain, the mammal brain, the human brain. Reptilian brain is your basic instinct, fight or flight. Your human brain is your basic emotions, and then the mammal brain, and then the human brain is higher thinking. Did I sum that up?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool.
So for each one of those
Yes.
systems, each one of those is tied to a nervous system as well. So the lizard brain is tied to the dorsal system, which is basically like, it's not fight or flight. It's actually like complete, completely disengagement. And then the second one being the mammal one, which is connected to fight or flight. That's how kind of mammals kind of are. And then the prefrontal cortex is the ventral vagal, and that's the more developed system, and that's how we communicate. So our nervous systems are always pinging all the time off of each other. And when we feel safe, we're operating out of that particular nervous system, but each one lines up with a part of the brain.
So there's the dorsal and the vagal. What was the middle one?
Parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic. I do know Mark Passio's work, but not extensively. And this is good. I'm learning, man. You're teaching me and everyone listening. This is great.
Yeah.
And what the more important
Mark's
point
work.
is, I want people listening to want to learn more, so they'll go to, I always will put loads of links, all of your links, and anything that we talk about, I will, put in the show notes. That is probably the most important thing that I do with my website. For example, if someone's wanting to find out about, 3D printing, or I will refer them to one of my interviews, and I say, look, okay, you can watch the interview or listen to it or not, but the important thing is there's loads of links there for you to do your own research. That's what I'm trying to do. So
That's awesome.
This is the first I've heard of this. Sorry, we're going. Where else you going with it, Owen? Take it away. What else?
You were just asking me, I guess, like what am I doing on an individual level to sort of, cultivate a better experience. And, like I said, the first and foremost thing, the cheesiest thing ever is I feel love in my heart every day at the beginning of the day. That is huge though, for me. Like, it only takes a few minutes. Like, I'm laying in bed, I'm already awake. What am I going to do? Right. I think about my grandfather. I think about an old cat we had, my friend Ben. Whatever it winds up being, something that really just gives me joy. The power.
I'm impressed
of memory.
that you can think it all before coffee. That's impressive.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not like it's very sophisticated. It's just emotion. It's pure emotion based. I'm just drawing up a memory of something that that gives me joy. And so, for instance, like my purpose is to bring people joy. And that again is abstract. And
sorry, Owen. So the positive thinking you do in the morning, that sets the stage for the rest of the day. Instead of going to, you wake up, you open your eyes and you go to social media or even worse, turn on mainstream news. My God. Yeah.
Yeah. But fear porn is just as bad. You know what I mean? If you wake up and you immediately put on some terrible, terrifying news about how bad things are and how much power they have and what they're going to do to us next, then you're vibrating at that level. Your emotions are going to be influenced by that stimulus, right?
This was a problem I had with InfoWars back in the day. Credit where it's due. The early work of Alex Jones really did bring a lot of amazing issues to my radar. But then I started to get the feeling, oh God, what? Oh, that wasn't a problem at all, and then of course, then inevitably once you discover Tragedy and Hope and the Peace Revolution podcast, Corbett Report, you never look at InfoWars again. But although I heard they have a great store, I do hear that they've got great products. Continue on. What are some other like actual rubber meets the road choices that you make that say a normal person who isn't aware of these issues or not even trying or doesn't even care may not do or do?
Sure. The beginning is really practicing awareness, right? Like all we are is attention. Where is your attention going? Be aware of that, right? Like we all have the ability to observe. And so, sometimes we're being thought and we get swept up into those thoughts. And that's okay. But once you become aware of it, like, oh, now you can kind of take the back seat. The idea is to be the observer and the participant, right? Like we're here having this human experience. We're supposed to have fun. We should have emotions. I'm not saying to become a robot, but like the idea is to be aware of what's happening to us. Like, how are we responding to it? What is going on with our thoughts? What is happening in our mind? And being aware of that, that's really the key thing right there. If there was one thing that you could start doing that would really change your relationship to yourself and really give you a lot more power and sovereignty, it's really interacting with your own mind and what you're allowing yourself to think. We can tap into literally whatever it is that we want. But if we can actively take control, and especially if finding purpose has been probably the biggest thing for me. I think that is the most important thing, because at that point, all the other things become easier. You have a reason why. And if you have a reason why, if you have a reason for being, then you're always going to have a self-worth. If if your girlfriend leaves you, or this terrible thing happens, or you run out of money, as long as you have a reason for being, a reason why, those can be mitigated. Like those are just situational. Those can go away. There's a cool story that I heard someone say once. I don't remember who it was, but it was about this really successful entrepreneur, and they're having lunch, and this entrepreneur gets off the phone. He hangs up and he goes, "I just lost all my money, millions of dollars. It's all gone. Pass the ketchup."
That reminds me of a Richard Grove story. What was it? They had lost all these emails, these important emails. And Joshua said, "Richard, we've lost," it was like 1,000 or something emails. And Richard's reaction was, "Yes, we're getting that many subscribers." He immediately saw it as a great thing. He saw the positive in it. And I have to admit, that is one thing that I have much over the past few years. I have quite improved on. Every negative, I immediately look at the positive and what can come out of it. If nothing else, you're a bit wiser for the stupid thing you just did. But at the very least, even financially, economically, the most powerful thing, the choices we make, where we spend our money, that's been a huge thing for the last, since I've woken up from the Matrix, is very much more conscious about where you spend your money and what you put in your body. It's all connected, everything. An example is, just yesterday, I did something filthy. I confess, I did something I shouldn't have. I was on the road, I was driving, and there was a donut shop. So I pulled in and I bought myself a donut and I ate it, and it was great. Okay. But okay, whatever. My point is, I would not, if it'd been a Dunkin' Donuts, I wouldn't have stopped, but it was the coolest little small town family run place. And I said, I've got to support this place. And okay, I'm going to get a donut, the power.
Dude, I think you should be allowed to get a donut. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we're here to experience all the grandness of this existence, and donuts are pretty freaking magically delicious. I'm a big fan of a hometown handmade donut, so I can't blame you there at all. But I couldn't agree with you more. Again, it's about energy, and what is money but a representation of energy, right? So where are we funneling this energy? Like, I don't buy things off of Amazon. Here's a great hack. If you're on Amazon and you're shopping around and you see something you like, you can click on the seller's website and buy it directly from them.
Nice. Nice.
Really good hack. I wish I had come up with that. I have to give credit where credit's due. It wasn't my observation. But like I use Scribed, for instance, for my audiobooks and books as opposed to Audible. And I love listening to audiobooks. And Scribe doesn't quite have everything yet, but
And you've made quite a few audiobooks. I mean, you've narrated quite a few. You've got a list of I saw on your website, but sorry, go on. Yeah, so Scribed over Script, for example. I'm aware of both of them, but sorry, is Script kind of they're like what the deal with the devil, Amazon, or Scribed? Which one do you prefer?
Well, it's SCRIBD is the one that I have personally used, and I like them better than Audible.
Oh, Audible. Sorry.
Because Audible's owned by Amazon. So I try and use Scribed, or I don't use Audible anymore. So just little things like that. It really does. It really does matter. Every little bit helps. We can vote with our dollars. We vote with our attention, and we vote with our money. Yeah. I have Linux. I run Linux on one of my.
Yeah, Linux, because you're fucking Microsoft over. So any chance to do that.
Yeah. I hate Microsoft.
But as you grow, as a person grows and improves and discovers that there's a bigger picture out there, I mean, the metaphorical red pill, the awareness that, we really are living in a matrix. There really are the parasites and tyrants who really do want to control us and literally want to kill all of us off. Once that reality actually does sink in and most people refuse to see it or believe it, life gets easier, actually. It actually, it sucks. It's a crap reality. But it really is the Matrix metaphor really is so good because you remember the guy that went back into the Matrix and he says, I don't remember anything. Oh, I just want this steak. That's
Cyrus.
Yeah.
I think we have, everything that is, everything that was, everything that will be is accessible outside the Matrix. Right. So here we are in this world. And before there was a phone, dude, there was no such thing as a phone. There are so many inventions to be found. There are so many solutions. We limit ourselves so much by trying to grab at the things that are right here and thinking, well, if this square peg doesn't fit into this round hole, then we're screwed. Well, dude, you're thinking inside the Matrix at that point. Like outside of this reality is literally infinite. And you know what? Nature can't lose. The universe cannot be outthought, manipulated, or outdone. It comes down really to another book that I would highly recommend is Power versus Force by David Hawkins.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
In that book, it's excellent. I highly recommend it. It's really kind of the beginning and the end of my program is understanding how to use power as opposed to force, right? People who are in lack mentality, people who are trying to manipulate, they're going to try and force. They're going to come from a needy place. They're going to try and twist things and do things like that, right? Very much operating from this reality. Power, on the other hand, that is accessing what is outside the Matrix and uplifting ourselves with the power of natural law. Nature is living. It's alive. It wants you to fulfill your purpose. Your purpose is your fingerprint. That is distinctly you. That's your identity. And the things that you want to see, that's what you're supposed to do. It would be incredibly, not even nihilistic, but just dirty if the universe put us here and then made us want these things that we can't ever get access to. Like that's not how it is. That's who we are. That's what we're supposed to do. Those are the things and so we want to understand how to limit the sort of emotional weather systems that can keep us between what it is that we do want and having it, right? And that really comes down to intention, understanding how to navigate emotionally and communicate properly with the universe.
About things like astral projection.
So I've never actually
do that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know a good friend in autonomy who claims that lucid dreaming. But not only lucid dreaming, but connecting with other people in lucid dreams. I mean, what do you think of all that?
Well, the dream place is very real. That is a real thing. It's in that infinite archive, right, where it's more fluid. And if you've ever had
you can train yourself to lucid dream. I know this. I've been trying because I used to have lucid dreams. They would just happen. They were great. So sorry, what were you go on?
Yeah. So the idea of intention, right? And aligning heart and mind, that is basically what's happening when you lucid dream, right? Your conscious mind is being aware that you're in this, infinite dream space. The dream place is very real. Every version of everything exists within everything that we can conceive is, was, will be, all of it is stored there. So that's where we go at night when we go to sleep. We go into the dream world. Our soul flies into the dream world, right? We're two parts, heart and mind, soul and mind. And so subconscious, conscious. Subconscious flies into this infinite realm of fluidity and just really whatever can be done. And when you wake up in a dream, that is what intention is. It's a great way to practice intention, right? So you wake up, you're in the dream, you're like, I'm going to fly now. And then you just immediately fly off.
Why would you not fly?
Well, we can use that power in the finite reality, but this is just a more dense, right? So that power is the same exact power that is in lucid dreaming, but there's a delay here because of the inertness of the matter of the material world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So astral projection, to answer that question, that's not something that I can do, but Robert Monroe's work is pretty vast on that. And I highly recommend, maybe doing some of those meditations that they have from the Monroe Institute.
This is
yes, nice, bro.
Yeah. You know who it was our buddy Joe Fo. It's the one that taught me how to do that.
Yeah, my friend Abby is a master at it. She teaches people. She taught her kids to lucid dream because they were having nightmares. And so they were able to become conscious in their dream and change the script in the nightmare. And so there's a lot of little hacks that I've learned from her. You can flip a light switch on and off. You can look at a clock.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of cool little tricks and tips.
But
there's a book called The Dream Searchers.
Oh, The Dream Searchers. I'll have to check that out.
Go ahead.
No, I was, but that is if you dream. We sleep a lot and we wake up, we don't remember anything. That is because I know the more exhausted I am, the more tired I am, the heavier I sleep, the more intense the dream. That can always be overcome. Just make sure you're have a long day. The more physical energy you put into the day, the harder you sleep. That's one thing I've discovered, because it's like people say, oh, I never dream. Well, I'm sure you do. You just people are a light sleeper, they probably dream, but they just don't remember it. What do you think?
Yeah, we dream every night. We fly into that space of alternates. Our soul goes on adventures, man. It wants some weird shit. Our souls are pretty kinky when we get down to the bottom of it, but we either remember it or we don't. We're always traveling there. But that's, to answer your question from earlier about the dogs seeing a thing that we don't see, they're barking at it. That's what's going on. They're seeing, some version of this dream world, right? And I don't know where exactly this world ends and that world begins and how that sort of happens. It's probably a scale. It's not like some finite boundary, what I'm saying? So it's all connected. And so like the idea is that, those alternatives really, from a quantum level, this reality that we're experiencing right now is a wave crashing, wave crashing, wave crashing, wave crashing, wave crashing. So when I say reality is alive, it's very much alive, and all of the causes are creating this effect. And we can't even begin to fathom how many causes there are that are creating this effect. But, that's like what's happening over and over and over and over and over again. So it's like think of a faucet drip, of like this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment,
man,
this moment.
I got to get my hands on some psychedelics, man. I'm dying to take DMT. Ever since that Peace Revolution episode where they played the documentary, I'm like, man, and I know friends who've done it and they have some interesting stories to tell. But on the dog and cat note, I was in my first awareness even thinking about this topic. I was in college. We're college kids. We're playing with a Ouija board, hey, dude, it's a Ouija. We're sitting there going, hey, Ouija, what's your name? And my point is that thing started to move and we weren't doing it. Yeah. It was spelling things, and I almost said in Spanish, además. And also, there was a cat, and the cat is running around. The cat is looking up in the air. And when a cat sees a bird through the window and they can't get it, and they do this little, You ever seen a cat do that? They do this like it's like this. They're expressing. I don't know whether it's frustration or curiosity, but that cat was doing that. The cat was looking around in the air, going. And when I noticed that, I said, "Man, I'm not doing this anymore. Get this. I'm not doing. I'm not playing this game anymore." Anyway, that was my first actual experience where it made me think there really is an invisible world, that we can't see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. The Kabbalion says the all is mind. Everything comes from the mental first. The mental is the cause, the physical, the effect. And really, I think agreement is kind of some of the thing that hardens that, right? So like I was talking about like ritual and these like entities or structures or whatever, and people doing these magic ceremonies or whatever. I don't think you got to do that. I think the more people that just agree on this certain thing that already exists, because you can't create anything, everything already is in existence, but the more people that just agree and acknowledge that, the more real it becomes. And I think that's why we see a lot of the same entities and things over time, is because people continue to pass these ideas and everyone kind of is like, wow, yeah. So this agreement just builds the momentum of that particular thing. Like whether it be fairies or mescalito, for instance, like to speak on
I haven't heard of that.
on,
Mescalito. Yeah.
So mescalito is the spirit of the plant of mescaline. And so when you take mescaline, for instance, a lot of people will see this green man and they call him mescalito. And so,
Cool.
there are machine elves when it comes to DMT, and a lot of people see those machine elves. That's like maybe the energy or the I don't know, the sort of mascot, maybe even
Yeah.
for that particular substance.
So
Some pretty wild stuff.
are
out
they
there.
actually there?
Yeah, everything is there. But where is there?
If they're seeing it, does
We
that
have
mean
here.
they're real? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Everything is real. Everything. Mickey
Um,
Mouse is real because we acknowledge it as a thing and we identify it. That makes it real. Now, does Mickey Mouse exist as a physical entity that breathes and eats a cheese sandwich? No, but it doesn't have to be real, right? Like no one can even define reality at this point.
So
Like that's what blows my mind.
is there something to like say you've got dark, heavy goth music, and as opposed to light, the power of music and art, is there something to the energy that they create and spread out? What do you think?
I would say, yeah, absolutely. I like heavy rock and music personally, and it gets me all charged up.
Yeah.
And I like I like sad bastard music. Sometimes actually cheers me up.
Yeah.
It's weird. I can listen to like dark, 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 bright, 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 or whatever. And some of these like softer emo type of songs. I'm pretty emo, to be fair.
Yeah,
But
when you sent me that message the other day, I had to look it up. And I was like, okay, I've learned something. I never heard that word before, because I'm a bit older than you, and I lived away in Europe for almost 20 years. So there's everyone, I've been back 5 years. So every once in a while there would be a slang term that'll come up that everybody seems to know, but I haven't quite, Oh man.
Right on. No, I get that. That's very cool.
The spirit molecule, the story that got me the most, because it was interesting. The Scottish Masons funded the only clinical study ever done on it. I thought that was interesting. But they discontinued it because, clinically it was interesting what the volunteers had to say, but they couldn't actually prove anything, and so, technically there's no scientific paper other than their testimony. But the one that I remember that encouraged me was the guy said in the documentary, he says, I was in this place and there was thousands of people there and they were all about to go back into the physical world, or there was like a waiting point. And he was like, dude, I've been here so many times before, and I love that. I was like, yeah, the idea of the reincarnation just can, keep coming and going and back and all of that. But take that to the next step. Do we have any control over the physical life we're put into or not? That's something we'll never know in this lifetime, but these are good questions to ponder. On the topic of what we've been talking about, do you remember that experiment where they wrote different labels on the bottles of water and something about the ions in the water were actually more Do you know what I'm talking about? That experiment? It was a
I
Japanese
do. I
guy.
think it's Matsumo Harimoto, if I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mistaken. I believe that was his name. But yeah, he basically prayed over the water, and they would take different shapes,
Yeah, that's it.
positive and negative, and the positive would create these sacred geometric shapes in the water, and the negative ones would be more scattered and chaotic. So yeah, so
And that ties
again,
into
back to the
everything that
idea
you've
that
been
reality
talking
is
about,
alive.
you know? Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that
reality
stuff's
is living.
amazing.
We are part of it. We are part of this system.
And
Yeah,
that is an example
absolutely.
of where
And
you could bring in that is an example of, I love the creativity behind it. That's one of the few examples of a clinical experiment where proving that there is something else going on. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about autonomy. I wanted you to, like, what was the path that led you to autonomy? And you've just finished autonomy. Any thoughts about it? How it's affected you so far?
I've really felt like it's helped me really come into my own and achieve a true level of autonomy. Right. My process was, around 2011. I saw What You've Been Missing. I'll forever be indebted to Richard and the crew for helping me realize what an idiot I was, and maybe still am a little bit, but specifically then. And that really put me on a course, and I wanted to be like Rich, or like Brett Veinotte, or like any of these guys who were sharing this kind of stuff. And that never really took for me, because it really wasn't, it didn't encapsulate what my purpose really is, right? Like, I am here to teach this kind of stuff, but in a different way, than they necessarily do it. And so I went through the whole spiritual sort of progression, and I felt like I was making my own connections, and coming to my own conclusions, and studying a lot of different material than what's in this kind of group, which was cool, because it felt like I was able to bring a lot of this information and knowledge back to this group. And so for me, autonomy felt a lot like coming home. After a long journey and discovery of some new ideas and ways to apply what we know as freedom. Freedom is love. It's the expression of love. Like, we have two choices in every moment: fear or love, as Bill Hicks so eloquently put it.
You
And
mean
so
Alex
those of
Jones?
us who want You're right, exactly. And so, as so many of us, um in every moment, choosing love and understanding that freedom is that expression of love. It's a really been an amazing sort of homecoming to come back into that community with some new perspectives, some different ideas, and synthesizing a lot of different people's work, and then bringing that back to the community, and being a part of the community that really understands what freedom is, what love is, at a deep level. People use these words, and I don't know that they necessarily have a clue what they mean often, but it's been incredible. Autonomy was an amazing course, even better as a community, and something that I'm super grateful to be a part of. And I just want to contribute as much as I can to the efforts that are
Yeah, you
being done
definitely
there. And I
are.
think well, I appreciate it. And it's been so good to get to know you and so many other people in autonomy. We start to really do our own things outside of autonomy, but always have that network that we can tap back into at any point, and that's kind of the beauty of it. Is it's very much a I would say, like, it's a interdependent community. And so for me, like I said, I went out and discovered all this stuff. I had some trials and tribulations, and then it's really afforded me the ability to build my own thing, and to be confident enough to be able to embark on that, as opposed to like trying to come up under somebody else's wing or somebody else's shadow or whatever. I've really started to step forward more independently, and started to really, work with a lot of other people too, in a way that's interdependent, right? Like, not codependent, but healthy, right? Where we support each other as individuals, but we also come together to work together to build something bigger than just ourselves.
And so now you have built this course, and it just kind of happened. You just did it. and it's been live since January. So for anyone interested, they want to up their level, they want to get in touch with you. I mean, I will link all of your websites in the show notes, but you want to talk about what your course offers, how they can improve their lives with what you're offering at the moment.
Sure. So my course focuses on finding your life's purpose, which I would differentiate from a function in life or a role in life. It's never going to be your purpose to be a bartender. It's never going to be your purpose to be a farmer. It's never going to be your purpose to be, a construction worker, for instance, right? Those are roles in society. And the purpose of someone is far more abstract than that, but it's a connection that we can have and foster between ourselves and the universe, and something that is sure footing, right? Like he says in the Outwitting the Devil book, determined purpose, right? Like a very specific definiteness is, I think, the word he uses of purpose. And so cultivating that and then instilling it. So providing lots of tools and resources to help get rid of the trauma, for instance, let go of the emotions, the limiting beliefs, the things that hold us back, identifying these egregors or pendulums or energetic informational structures that hold us back, as well. And then beginning to embark on an adventure of self-discovery and implementing that purpose. Right. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. And there's an entire community there of people who understand the process and want to help and collaborate with other people. We have a skill share. We have a time bank where you can trade time with people who have different skills, and a lot of just different resources and tools that are available there. And, if people want to get in touch with me, they can send me an email, solutionsnotrevolutions.com. They can go to my website, bootsygreenwood.com, and click on, get an ebook that will show you in 8 pages a really good technique for finding what your life purpose is. And if you want to continue to work, just send me an email, send me an email or hit me up on my webpage and send me a message via the webpage. Send me an Instagram message. I'm very responsive. So if anybody's, wants to reach out, then there's a multiple amount of ways that they could do so. And
your podcast.
Discord server. Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a podcast too, Bootsy Greencast. I call it, which is maybe the dumbest podcast name ever, but whatever, I had to call it something, and my mom hated that one. So that's what we went with. And so, yeah, if people want to connect with me, I want to connect with them, and I'd love to work with people if they are interested. We'll talk and see if it's a good fit, and then take it from there. I'm going to be working on some other stuff too in the future. I also have comedy. I do comedy. So if that's something that somebody's interested in, I've got some sketches and stuff as well on my YouTube channel and all the places. Content Safe is amazing. They distribute my content for me. So it's all over the place. So there's sketches and there's a short clip of stand up on my website, but yeah, like all that stuff is out there. And so however people want to connect to me, I'd be happy to chat with them and connect. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I was laughing at your skit about dating during the pandemic, and it was all that you were kissing, and then you had your masks on, and then the other skit you did, you're at the doctor's, and it turned out to be a hair replacement at the end. I was laughing at that one, and you did
Awesome.
You were on tour with the Impractical Jokers, their cruise ship. What was that about?
So yeah, I've had the opportunity to work for a company here in Atlanta called Sixth Man, and what they do is a lot of chartered cruises. And I got hired to go and work with them and be an MC. So I've been on stage with Gene Simmons and Peter Gabriel, and interviewed him and tons of other people, and done all kinds of just silly things. We used to play Dirty Bingo on the ships, and I would host that and host just different activities and things on the ship. Super fun, amazing job, great group of people. We'll see kind of what the future holds as far as things go there.
Yeah. I assume that was all pre-pandemic,
It was.
Yeah.
And so things definitely changed a lot, obviously.
The Impractical Jokers,
right.
Then they were on the ship with you, working and doing their thing.
Yeah, they did. They have their show called The Tenderloins, and so there was also quite a few stand-up comedians on the ship. And myself and my friend Terry, we got to do comedy on some of those comedy showcases, and it was a very, very cool experience. And one of those things where, like, a positive attitude, right, kind of led to this thing that I could have never asked for that. Like, there was no way I even knew that job existed. I was just goofing around, and one day sent my friend a funny Marco Polo, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go into the Caribbean?" And then I wound up, actually, we did tours in Spain as well, and in Europe. And so, yeah, so it was amazing, unreal, truly. So yeah, I loved that cruise, particularly the Impractical Jokers. It was definitely my favorite one, for sure.
I mean, behind the scenes, what do they like to work with?
Super nice guys.
Yeah.
Very humble and down to earth. Just really, really sweet
Yeah.
guys.
Let's
all
see.
of them.
There's Sal and let's see. What are their names? My kids love their show, and
Sal, Joe, Q, and
yeah, they're
Yeah,
great. It
and
really is a clever
yeah.
show. Could just keep going.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is I had a list of comments and questions to ask you, and I don't think we touched on any of them. The conversation just kind of went boom, and I'm just taking notes. I'm like, just kind of going with the flow. You have got so much knowledge, and I mean, you're the kind of guy that you could just talk about anything with. Owen Hunt, thank you very much. Thank you, and I'll see you in Autonomy.
Yes, sir. I'm around. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I had a blast chatting with you. I will see you around. Have a
All
great
right.
afternoon, my friend. Enjoy the spring.
Yes.
Walking down the street, the children play. For them, it's just another day. The future's reflected in their parents' faces, who chose to stay on in this place where they were born, went to school, got married, had kids, like their grandparents before them did. Got to escape, before it's too late. Although today I could say that I really will miss the when Santa. But yeah, I was right. Knew what it was like when Santa.
You've been listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan. Go to the subscribe page and sign up to get notifications of the latest posts. And check out the support page to help keep it going.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Jesus Christ. I've got a friend in Jesus Christ, and Krishna and Buddha and my bartender.
Have you found that your skills aren't matching up with the challenges ahead? Here are 19 essential skills for success that school never taught you. Get your free copy by following the link below or visit getautonomy.info/19skills.
Awesome.